Welcome to Educasts, home of Educasters. If you walk into a traditional classroom, you know the script. Desks are in straight rows. The teacher is at the front, talking. Students are at their desks, listening or pretending to. The bell rings. You switch from one subject, like math, to another, like history, and you try to memorize the facts you're given so you can pass the test on Friday. This is a picture of school that most of us recognize. We may have loved it or hated it, but we accepted it. This is education as preparation, a place you go to get filled up with knowledge you'll supposedly need later in life. Now, picture a different room. The desks are shoved together in messy groups. One group of kids is building a small wooden model of a bridge. Another is in the corner, arguing over a map. A third is clustered around a computer, looking up prices for building materials. The teacher isn't at the front. She's moving from group to group, kneeling and asking questions. It's noisy, it's a little chaotic, and to many people, it might not look like school at all. This second classroom is the living, breathing example of a powerful and uniquely American idea: pragmatism. Pragmatism, at its core, is a no-nonsense, common-sense philosophy. It's the proof is in the pudding way of thinking. Pragmatists have one main question for any idea, theory, or belief. Does it work? Not is it beautiful, or is it ancient, or is it handed down by authority, but what practical difference does it make in the real world? When this hard-nosed, practical idea was applied to education, it didn't just tweak the old system, it blew it up. It argued that the old model of school, based on memorizing ancient facts and timeless truths, was failing to prepare kids for the one thing that was guaranteed: a future that would be full of constant, rapid change. The main champion of this revolution was John Dewey, and his big idea was simple but world-changing. He argued that school shouldn't be a place where you go to prepare for life. He insisted that school is life. This essay will dig into what pragmatism is, where it came from, what it actually looks like in a classroom, and why this hands-on idea is still one of the most powerful and argued-over forces in education today. Pragmatism was born in the late 1800s, a time when America was changing at lightning speed. The Civil War was over, factories were springing up, railroads were connecting the coasts, and science was challenging old religious and philosophical truths. Old answers just didn't seem to fit the new questions. A handful of thinkers started to sketch out a new way of thinking that felt just as new, practical, and forward-looking as America itself. The first was Charles Sanders Peirce, a brilliant but difficult man who first laid out the basic idea. An idea's meaning is nothing more than its practical consequences. If you can't say what practical, observable effect an idea would have, then it's just a bunch of hot air. The man who made this idea famous was William James, a Harvard psychologist and philosopher with a gift for clear writing. James was the great popularizer. He talked about the cash value of an idea. Like a check, an idea is just a piece of paper until you cash it in by putting it to work in your life. For James, truth wasn't a fixed, unchanging thing that sat on a shelf. He said truth happens to an idea. An idea becomes true when it helps us solve a problem, navigate our world, or make sense of our experiences. This was a bombshell. It meant that truth wasn't something we find, but something we make. It's a tool, an instrument that we create and use to deal with the world. This is a powerful and, to some, a dangerous idea. But one man saw it as the key to unlocking education and, in turn, democracy itself. That man was John Dewey. If Peirce and James laid the foundation, John Dewey built the entire house of pragmatic education. Dewey wasn't just an armchair philosopher. He was a man who got his hands dirty. When he was at the University of Chicago, he didn't just write about education. He and his wife Alice started their own school, the Laboratory School, to actually test his ideas in a real-world setting with real kids. Dewey's entire philosophy was built on a few core beliefs that directly challenged the desks-in-a-row model of school. First, education is learning by doing. This is his most famous slogan, and it's the one most often misunderstood. Dewey didn't just mean that kids should be busy with hands-on projects. The doing was just the first step. The real learning came from the thinking that the doing required. He called it experiential education. He argued that humans don't learn by being told things. We learn by having an experience, running into a problem, and having to think our way out of it. You don't learn how to sail a boat by reading a book called Principles of Sailing. You learn by getting in a boat, trying to pull the sail, and realizing the wind is pushing you the wrong way. That problem forces you to think, to experiment, to try something new, and to learn. At his laboratory school, kids didn't just read about history. They tried to recreate the skills of that time. They'd cook, weave, and build. But the point wasn't to become good weavers. The point was to understand from the inside out the problems and solutions that shaped human history. Second, school is a miniature society, not a holding pen. Dewey believed the old model of school was built on a terrible mistake. It treated children as individuals to be filled with facts, completely separate from their social lives. Dewey said this was nonsense. We are social creatures. We learn from and with each other. Therefore, he argued, a school shouldn't be an ivory tower. It should be a mini community, a miniature society where children learn the most important skill of all, how to live, work, and solve problems together. For Dewey, this was the entire point of public education in a democracy. How can we expect people to be good democratic citizens, to debate, compromise, and work for the common good, if they've spent 12 years sitting in silent rows, forbidden from talking, and trained only to compete against each other for grades? In a Dewey-inspired classroom, collaboration isn't cheating, it's the whole point. Third, education is life, not just preparation for life. This was his other great slogan. The old model of education is all about the future. Learn this because you'll need it later. Learn this for the test. Learn this so you can get into college. Learn this so you can get a job. Dewey said this kills all natural curiosity. A child lives in the present. The only way to get a child to learn is to connect it to their life, right now. The teacher's job is to find out what the students are interested in, and then build a curriculum around it that hooks them into the real knowledge. Does this mean if a kid only wants to play video games, that's all they do? No. Dewey would say the teacher's job is to ask, why do you like video games? Are you interested in the story, the art, the coding? From there, a clever teacher could build a bridge to literature, graphic design, or computer science. The interest is the hook, not the final destination.